Hello and welcome to this week's live weekly warm-up. This one I am doing or was inspired to do because last week the International Clarinet Association published a review of the Next Generation Clarinet Method. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to share one of those exercises with all of you and do it for this week's live weekly warm-up. If you're interested in reading the full review that the ICA did, you can check that out in the description of this video. If you're on Instagram, I'll put that in after the live is over. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to sharing this exercise. This is one that haven't ever shared before, actually, out of the book, because it's a little bit complicated. Notes-wise, there's a lot of different notes in it. So I've never done it in a live weekly warm-up because I usually do stuff that's a little more simple, so it's easier to keep track of the notes, just sort of learning it by ear and thinking about it. But this one is a really good one and a really fun one. So what it is the Arpeggios exercise that I have in the technique sort of warm-up section of the book. And what makes this arpeggio exercise sort of unique is that it's kind of a lot of different arpeggio exercises put all together into one. I find one of the most challenging things when reading an etude or practicing etudes in general is just how quickly the notes go by, and there's lots of different patterns, and oftentimes lots of those patterns are scale-based and arpeggio-based. So this exercise is sort of designed in a way to get you reading lots of different arpeggios and sort of lots of different organizations and orientations so that you're really comfortable reading those when you go to play them in an etude or even a piece that has lots of arpeggios in it. So I'm going to break this up into sort of 4 different parts because each of the 4 measures is a little bit different. So the first measure is just a very standard major arpeggio. So it's the first, third, and fifth of whatever key you're playing in. I'll demonstrate it in C major just to make it easy. And what the rhythm is one long note. The reason why that first note is long is to get the sound going really well. And then it's 16th notes up and down. The 16th notes going up start on the E of beat 2. So the E in C major will be on the E, the second 16th of beat 2, and then you go up 2 octaves to the high C and then back down for the first measure. So let me just demonstrate what that sounds like. Let me pull up my chair so hopefully you can see my fingers. And that's just the first measure. Let me demonstrate that one more time. So it's a C major arpeggio, 2 octaves, starts on C first beat, then goes up and down. The reason why I hold the first note long is to get the sound going really well. And the reason why you start the arpeggio on actually the second 16th note of the beat is so you can practice good momentum and good note groupings. So the way that I would think about this rhythmically is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Pardon my bad singing, but you get the idea of grouping forward to the next beat because you start in the middle of the beat. So really think 2, 3, 4, 1, so that you really have that nice group. Now going on to the second measure. The second measure is probably my favorite because this takes the dominant chord, the 5 chord of the key, and also is a dominant 7th arpeggio. I personally did not get nearly enough practice with dominant 7th arpeggios or really 7th arpeggios in general when I was practicing because I did most of my scale learning out of the Albert scale book, and there aren't any dominant 7ths in that actually. So I put this in my arpeggio exercise because I think it's really important because dominant 7ths come up all over the place. So that's the next one. And the nice thing about this is even though we're in C major, this is the G major dominant 7th because it's the dominant of C major, the 5 chord of C major. So you're actually practicing sort of 2 keys at once with this exercise. So the second measure just goes in right from the first measure and is just one whole measure of 2 octaves in 16th notes, dominant 7th chord. So in C major, we start on G, and it sounds like this. I'll do that one more time. And that's the second measure. Now the third, fourth, and fifth measure are back to C major because we've had our dominant key and now we need to resolve in C major, but it's 2 different patterns. So the first pattern is 16th notes and actually skips up to the 5th. So it's C, G, E, C, G, E, C, and so on for 2 octaves. Then the next 2 measures, the last 2 measures, do it in triplets, G, C, G, E, G, E, C, E, C, and sort of works its way down. So I'll do just the third measure so you can hear how that goes. That goes like this. And then the last 2 measures are triplets. And then that's the end. So when you put this all together, you get a really good start with good sound quality on the first long note, a great note grouping through the major arpeggio. You do the dominant arpeggio 2 octaves, and then you have 2 different sort of patterns on the C major arpeggio. So by the time you do all 5 measures of just this one exercise, you're really well versed in all of the different arpeggios for C major and even the dominant of C major, G dominant. So let me play it all the way through. You also probably noticed as I was playing one measure at a time that it sounds really incomplete to just stop at the end of the measure, because like all good music, this exercise leads to the next beat and is really well connected. And that was, of course, really intentional because, again, when you're playing all of those really fast arpeggios in your etudes, it's always well connected and you have to work on joining it together. So that's the goal with this exercise too, is get comfortable with each of these individual patterns and then make them mesh together really well. So let me go ahead and demonstrate the whole thing all together in C major. And like any warm-up, make sure that you get a good start and sound really great on every single note. So you see that's a really big exercise, actually. It's not too long. Like I could still do it in one breath at that speed. It's perfectly acceptable to breathe at the end of the third measure. So after you do, take a breath after that quarter note. That's a nice spot to breathe if you need to in this one. But you see how there's all the different patterns for the major arpeggio and also all of the dominant of the key as well to really work through. And then if you can get it all sounding good, all really well connected, then you're in good shape. And of course, you can do this in all 12 of the major keys and all 12 of the minor keys for even more challenge and more arpeggio fun. So I hope this exercise makes sense. I know it's a little bit more complicated to do over teaching it this way where you can't actually see the music. But if you want to see the music, you can get the Next Generation Clarinet Method and find it in the technique warm-up section of the book and play through it there. I also have, of course, as a extra resource with the Next Generation Clarinet Method, the All Keys Companion Guide, which has it in all of the keys. So if you want to do this exercise, then make sure that you get the book. If you already have the book, then you can work on this week and try it out. And yeah, this is definitely more of an advanced exercise. You honestly, if you want to just practice the first measure and work on that in a few keys, getting that sounding really good before you put it all together, that would be a great way to work on this as well. But just like any technique exercise, take your time, go for really good quality, great sound, great finger coordination and control on every single note, and you'll be in good shape and be making progress in your playing. So links are in the description for the ICA review of the Next Generation Clarinet Method. There's also a link there for more information about the book and to buy it. To buy it or get more information, it's quickstartclarinet.com/nextgenbook. So you can definitely check that out if you're interested in this exercise and all of the other exercises in there. And thank you so much for tuning into this week's live weekly warm-up. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one.